Joe Biden now has the lead statewide in Pennsylvania.
He now appears to be on the verge of clinching the presidency.
President Trump cannot be reelected if he doesn't win Pennsylvania's 20 electoral votes.
A reality call for President Trump, even from his favorite television network, Fox News, that his rival Joe Biden has taken the lead in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania, as well as Georgia, makes the Democrats' victory all but inevitable.
The mail-in ballots, where there's tremendous corruption and fraud going on.
Donald Trump could see the vote slipping away from him last night, or, as he sees it, being stolen.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us.
But the votes being counted now are not illegal. They are legal postal ballots, sent in their millions by mail, the majority by Democrats, many of whom wanted to avoid turning up on Election Day and risking infection in the middle of a pandemic. Some networks, so outraged by the president's allegations, cut away.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual.
Back inside the White House, the president, barely pausing for breath, continued.
They want to find out how many the votes they need, and then they seem to be able to find them. It's amazing how those mail-in ballots are so one-sided.
To hear the president, the pollsters, vote counters, media are all involved in an elaborate plot against him, yet he provided no evidence.
But there's been a lot of shenanigans, and we can't stand for that in our country. Thank you very much.
CNN was among the few networks who broadcast the entire speech, and this, the withering verdict of one anchor.
That is the most powerful person in the world, and we see him like an obese turtle on his back, flailing in the hot sun, realizing his time is over.
Today, the Republican senator from Pennsylvania broke rank and insisted there was no vote-counting fraud in his state.
I saw the president's speech last night, and it was very hard to watch. The president's allegations of large-scale fraud and theft of the election are just not substantiated. I'm not aware of any significant wrongdoing here.
Other big-name Republicans were notably silent, but some staunch Trump allies did dare to support the president's baseless claims.
By clouding the vote counting in a shroud of darkness, they are setting the stage to potentially steal an election.
Is it any wonder, given the rousing language, that Trump supporters, some with guns, surrounded a vote-counting center in Arizona, where they were only too happy for the votes to be counted because the results showed Trump closing the gap with Biden?
I ask everyone to stay calm, all the people to stay calm. The process is working.
Once again, Joe Biden used his televised address to attempt to turn down the heat and appeal for patience.
Each ballot must be counted. And that's what we're going to see going through now. And that's how it should be. Democracy is sometimes messy. It sometimes requires a little patience as well.
Messy is exactly the word for what we witnessed from the president last night. As Joe Biden takes the lead in Pennsylvania and Georgia, the president, still holed up in the White House, may soon have to accept the inevitable, that he has lost the election and Joe Biden is America's new president.
There's something happening here.
There is something happening here. An election is on the brink of selecting a new president. But the existing one is so far refusing to accept the result.
And Siobhan, I gather that just in the last few minutes, the president has released a statement. What does it say?
Well, yes, Matt, we've had a statement via the campaign on behalf of Donald Trump, I should say, reiterating really his insistence that all legal ballots, he says, must be counted and all illegal ballots should not be counted. And yet we've heard from numerous now election officials that there is no evidence that there are illegal ballots, simply legal postal ballots that are being counted. Regardless, that count continues, and it does seem today, Matt, that we are inching towards the moment where Joe Biden will be named the next president of the United States. We know he's due to give an address to the nation this evening, and earlier on, America's top Democrat Nancy Pelosi declared Mr. Biden the president-elect. This will no doubt infuriate President Trump. And while it's true that we do not know the election's result yet, we do know one thing, and that is that Donald Trump will leave the White House kicking and screaming. Matt.
Siobhan, thanks very much. Well, the world's press and indeed a host of Secret Service agents have all been gathering in Wilmington, Delaware, where we're told that Joe Biden is planning to make a national address later tonight. If, and it is a big if, the race has been called by then. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilsum, is in Delaware. Lindsay, there was a report they were putting the champagne on ice. Is that still the case?
Well, Matt, you know, sometimes you're where history is happening. And today it is supposed to be here in a car park in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe Biden, as you said, is expected to give a speech on a stage which is some way behind me. There's a big screen there as well. We're expecting that maybe in about 5 hours' time, prime time for the US television network news. But, you know, will he be president-elect by then? That is what the campaign is hoping. He has been extremely careful not to declare victory, even though that is the way it is looking, because he wants his margin to be unassailable. That's extremely difficult. Normally, of course, a president-elect wouldn't give a speech until there'd been a concession from the loser. People have been passing around on social media the extremely gracious concession speech by John McCain, who lost to Barack Obama in 2008. Well, you know, whatever the results, no one's expecting that from Donald Trump. A few supporters have been gathering here. More will come later. I was speaking to those people who are desperate for it to be announced that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have won.
Feeling good, feeling optimistic, feeling excited, elated. We are about to have prayerfully the first African-American female vice president in office. So that within itself is a historic moment, and I am excited.
What do you think about the fact that the president at the moment seems unwilling to concede?
It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment, and it would be, for me, it would be important for other people to realize that not everyone feels that way, and not everybody is supportive of how he presents himself.
Yeah.
But what's worrying Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is the longer this goes on, the more polarized, divided and fractious this nation becomes.
Lindsay, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now is Neil Katyal, law professor and former acting Solicitor General in the Obama administration. Thanks for coming on the program. Let me ask you this. We've all been saying really all week that Donald Trump is lawyered up. But what is his legal strategy? What can he actually do to reverse this count, to stop the count, to make this, what seems like a probable result, go away?
Well, there isn't that much that he can do. There's a lot he can try and do, but I think that's why you're seeing all the great Republican lawyers not being willing to take any of these cases. And so he's stuck with people like Rudy Giuliani and the like. And in our system, every state has its own election system, and you challenge it first in the state courts, and then you can possibly bring it, if there's a federal issue, to the United States Supreme Court. Here, the one issue that he's had that has some legal support is the idea that our American Constitution requires state legislatures to set the rules for an election. And what's happened after coronavirus is sometimes state judges have relaxed those rules. This has never been an argument that the Supreme Court's ever accepted. At one point in 2000, 3 justices did, but that was it. And so what it means practically here is Pennsylvania has had a rule that says your ballots have to come in by election day that's been set by the legislature of Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, nope, as long as they come in by Friday, 3 days after the election, that's enough. And so the Trump lawyers have been saying, that's our argument. We can say that the state legislature hasn't set the rules for these ballots. Here's the problem. The ballot count that you're seeing today that your news just reported on from Pennsylvania doesn't include the ballots from Tuesday to Friday. Biden wins without them. That's just extra gravy. So this is the problem, is that Trump can insinuate certain things, but when you look at it, he doesn't have the facts and he doesn't have the law. So, he can try, but, this is over as far as I can see.
So just briefly on this issue, they're basically throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly. It's the spaghetti strategy. And, sometimes that works in different settings. But here, for the best of reasons, there's kind of a fundamental principle of Anglo-American law, which is count every vote to the extent you can, maximize people's voting power. And when Trump is saying, throw this vote out, throw that vote out, technicality here, technicality there, it's not going to work. I mean, I was a junior lawyer for Al Gore and Bush versus Gore. And this is very different than that for two reasons. One is Trump can't just throw out the elections in one state. He's got to get courts to agree in 2 or more states if the voting trends continue. That's a big barrier. And then the second problem is that Al Gore was always behind and Bush was always in front before. Now you've got the reverse. You've got Trump basically going in and saying, yes, I'm a loser right now, but make me federal courts a winner. That's always a tough argument.
Okay. Just in one line, Neil, if he doesn't concede, if he doesn't want to lead, what can be done legally to make that not happen, to make him, to get him out of the building behind me?
Well, there will be a use of force if there has to be. I mean, I don't think it'll come to that because, someone, whether his spouse or vice president or someone will, drag him out themselves. But if worst comes to worst, as Vice President Biden's staff said today, we've got means in America of removing someone.
Okay. Neil Katyal, thank you very much indeed. Well, my next guest is Representative-elect Byron Donalds. He's a Republican who has just won his seat in Southwest Florida. Congratulations, Byron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So Donald Trump was on television last night and he accused the other side of stealing the election without proffering even a shred of evidence. As a newly elected member of the House of Representatives, will you now stand up on this program and say that that kind of statement was shameful?
I'm not going to say that. I think it's important that every legal vote is counted. We are still in the middle of the vote counting process. That is not done yet. When the state of Pennsylvania or Georgia or Nevada or Arizona and even North Carolina come out with their official results, at that point you have to take a look at what it is. Well, right now we're in a situation where we are 3 days past polls being closed. Ballots are still being counted. There have been questions raised. And to be frank, in our society, what you want to make sure happens is that either campaign has full access to watching count procedures. And if they feel that they're not having that access, then you typically take that to court. This is something that does happen often. I think the thing that, is also in some respects shameful is the way that the media portrays this. We've had election lawsuits in years gone by. There've been many of elections that have had it. I think that what you have to allow for is the process to complete itself. When it's completed, then I think it's appropriate for the media to draw judgments then.
Okay. Byron Donalds, with all respect, we all heard the president last night live on television. We're not spinning his words. These were his words. And he accused the other side of stealing the election. I mean, of course you have to count all the legal votes, but you leave it to the lawyers. You leave it to the process, and you don't get up in the middle of it and point the finger at the other side with a really quite damaging accusation in the middle of a very delicate process.
The process is always delicate. Let's be clear on this. The process is always delicate. But one of the things that we have concern, and your previous guest did bring it up, is actually what happened in the state of Pennsylvania with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court unilaterally changed election law in Pennsylvania without the legislature. So listen, we're going through a process which frankly in some of these states should not even be happening. It's clear that Florida, even if you go back to Florida's history in 2000, former Governor Jeb Bush said we learned our lessons and we made changes. And the situation we're having, frankly, is that you have states that did not prepare themselves for the way they were going to take in ballots. And that, frankly, is the real problem we have right now in 2020. As long as we have ballot security and ballot integrity, both sides can live with the results.
Okay, just one line, Byron. If Biden is going to be the next president, will you actually work with him as a Republican, briefly?
I think if Joe Biden becomes president of the United States, the responsibility is to make sure that principles and the Constitution is followed first and foremost. Every member of Congress, every president, we swear an oath to the United States Constitution. So as long as a potential President Biden stands by the Constitution, and we can figure out ways we can try to get some things done. Secondarily, it's a matter of principle and the things that we all run for. I have my principles just like he does. And so if there are areas where those align, then yeah, we can get some work done. If there's areas that we can't align, and that's something that the American people have to decide.
Byron Donalds, thank you very much indeed for coming on our program.